on. What's going on? There it is. Okay. I was so close to having it all perfect. I was even sewing at the beginning so you would know what a wonderful show it was going to be today. And unfortunately, I forgot to turn on the microphone. But that's okay, no big deal. I'm going to go ahead real quick and adjust this camera a little bit because I realize you can't see this wonderful haircut my wonderful daughter gave me a couple days ago. Again, I love this built-in hairdresser around the house, so there's no reason to cut you all short so you can't see all of the gray hairs anymore up there on top. We could go to the overhead camera, but then you might see the balding spot. Oh, that's a much nicer. Look at that, guys. Isn't that wonderful? Hello. Oh, Jiminy Christmas. Happy Friday, everybody. It looks like I'm more disorganized than I even expected. You know, and I thought this was going to be one of those shows. It was just smooth operator. You know what I mean? Hey, folks, my name is Rob Appell. Welcome. This is the Stitchin Heaven live channel, Sew Well with Rob Appell, having a great time, and I've been doing some fun test sewing and everything on some stuff, and I just didn't feel like cleaning up the set. I wanted to bring you in for our live Friday show. Welcome. I see you are all having a wonderful time out there talking amongst yourself. I love that. Looks like everybody's engaged and you can all hear me now. Looking at some clatter and some wonderful chatter about the weather as well as the mystery quilt. So we'll talk about the mystery quilt here in a moment. Let's say hello to all 68,000. We did it. I requested it and you did it. Thank you very much, everybody. 68,000 subscribers. If you're not on that list, there's a button somewhere below the screen here. Hit that. And then, of course, make sure that you press the notifications because I try to go live Fridays at 2 p.m. Pacific, which makes it 5 Eastern for us all. And I might be doing even more with this live show, building out this format a little bit more. I don't know. We still want to do the recorded tutorials, and those happens on Wednesdays. And so as we start to go through the announcements, yes, this Wednesday we just had the epic block of the month number 1. This is a still shot of the quilt there. And yes, unfortunately at the moment, the block of the month is sold out. It was a pre-cut block of the month. It featured my fabrics that are new worlds and newer worlds. And I know I just threw a bunch of half square triangles on the floor. No big deal. So this is it. This is the unquilted version. This is what I actually made while making the video package. We have 12 videos in the tutorial series, 1 a month for you coming down the pipeline. It's just going to be awesome. And I just want to pick these up real quick because I did not really intend to shuffle those or move those. I also want to let you know, whoops, we have the Sew Well group on Facebook. Make sure you're involved with that also on our Facebook channel. And it's a private group and we can do a lot there with photos, and that might be where we end up doing more and more in the near future. I've got this idea. I'm not ready to tell you all about all of it, but I can't wait any longer to tell you about a little bit of it. So we're going to talk about that today also as we go through the announcements. Next week, we're going to finish out Arabella. That was our block of the month for last year that I was sewing through. And you can see we've got the big, broad outside borders and that cheesy smile on that guy holding that thing up. My goodness. But it is pretty awesome. And now, folks, this one is not sold out to my knowledge at this moment. And it will be pre-cut for 2025, and it is shipping out real soon for your first month. Now, the cool thing about the way we're doing this is those Arabella videos that I did all throughout last year will, of course, they still remain, and they'll be in the Facebook group and available to all of you to enjoy and learn from in the full-length tutorials month by month on the Wing and a Prayer Arabella program. So we're just trying to do more and more to support our block of the month out there. We know how much you all love it. We have, I don't want to say hundreds, but it feels like it, of programs every year out there. We literally ship between 6 and 10 every month that start up. And so if you multiply even 6 times 12, I think that's 72. So there are maybe almost 100 a year that we do. And we have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of quilters that join us. And it's really fun. And I'm, well, again, and also I talk about when we get to the grateful list, I'm really enjoying the value in having a bit of a set schedule to certain stuff, even if it's creative stuff, if that makes sense. So anyways, hopefully that will make sense for everybody out there as well. And all right, so as we drive through the rest of our announcements, please don't forget to sign up for our email over at stitchinheaven.com. That way you get our flash sale that comes through your email once a week. We don't want you to miss out on that. Also coming up near future for the locals in town, Scrappy Sew Day, January 25th. This is going to be super fun in person. We are asking you to register so we know how many spots to set aside, and there is some limited space in the sewing area where we have, so we do want to make sure we know if you're coming on the 25th to join us for our Scrappy Sew Day. I think we're all kind of in the mood to do some fun stuff with some Scrappy. I know I certainly am. I've got these visions in my head of these quilts that are just a little bit less organized, maybe like today's show, but gorgeous. And I think what I'm going to need to focus on, though, is not doing it with all of my scraps, but doing it with a series of scraps. And that's something I want to talk more about throughout the next few weeks, is how we manage our scraps and what we can do with our scraps. Because if you're a quilter, you've got scraps. And one of the cool things about the scraps is they can build out, but sometimes it's, okay, I don't want to say it. I don't want to sound negative, but I love quilting, and therefore I don't want to waste my time making a quilt top that's not going to really be satisfying. So just working from scraps to use up my scraps is an okay idea, but I'd much rather actually curate my scraps, and even if I need to add a little bit to those to make beautiful quilts that are more organic looking. So I think maybe the word scrappy and organic get a little bit overlapped, over confused, caught up in that Venn diagram. And I'm thinking what I'm kind of going for maybe is more organic than scrappy, but we'll all see. I mean, you can judge me on that in the next few weeks to come. Just stick with me on that. Speaking of cool things to come, Expo, you can now sign up. You saw what a blast we had last month at Expo. So we have advanced registration, folks. You can be on the wait list, and this will help us help you make sure you stay in the know with all the great stuff that's coming up for Expo 2025. Make sure you sign up for that on the Stitchin Heaven webpage. While you're there, check out the info on the virtual quilt along coming up on April 19th. If you came in today's video before it started, I had a trailer previewed and posted that you got to see last week, which is awesome. And that's just a reminder that we have on April 19th, that's the virtual quilt along, like our mystery sew along. It's live on YouTube. And then August 6th through 10th, we'll be having a retreat in person in Quitman, Texas, and that we're doing golden tickets. So if you do choose to buy one of the kits for the April 19th sew along, you might receive one of the 5 golden tickets, which will cover your registration entirety, and that will get you off to the retreat with us there in August, which I think would be super, super fun to have you. There's a little bit more information on our website, so check out this page. We're calling the quilt the Glowing Checkered Star, and once again, I probably have come up with too many names for too many different things. Sorry to be confusing folks, but it's just, and it's not even too much coffee. I even almost put coffee on the grateful list today because I've been so enjoying my coffee time lately. But yeah, no, it's not even over caffeinated. It is just super, super excited and passionate about all that I've been doing here recently in the sewing room. I'm really excited about all of that. If you have questions, you can hit me up with an email, rob@stitchinheaven.com, or later on, I'm going to show the show and tell from the viewers. If you ever want your quilts enjoyed by all of the audience out there and you want to share them that way, feel free to send them to me via email, rob@stitchinheaven.com, and we can see some of those awesome quilts there on the Friday live show. That is also awesome. Hey, I want to talk about, before we dive into the grateful list and the sewing project, if we end up with enough time today, is I want to talk about the fact that it's the new year, and with the new year, a lot of us start planning for our newest adventures and our new projects and our new health programs, and that's a lot about what we'll talk about in the grateful list. But I just want to remind you all, we have so many new viewers out there, that Stitchin Heaven really grew as a quilting business based off our love for taking folks on adventures. So one of the things we've been known for years is our quilting cruises. And we updated the webpage, and there are just tons and tons and tons of quilting cruises. I had a few built into the iPad from a couple of weeks ago when we were doing the live show. So up and coming in kind of in order, but no particular, some really fun ones is going to be the Quilting with the Stars. That's March 16th through 23rd. I think there may still be just barely enough time. I think that's why I have this slide if you want to jump on. But also I wanted to point out the stops that they're going through there in the Bahamas and Coquet and St. Thomas and St. Martin, all that. I believe that's the same one we get to do on our Patriot Cruise, which is I think why I was excited about that. We also have the Legacy Quilting Voyage coming up May 4th through 11th. That'll be on the Harmony of the Seas. And we have a couple of fantastic instructors for that project, or that quilt, I should say. Of course, the Alaska Quilting Adventure coming up August 22nd and through 29th. That one has Becky Jorgensen and Tiffany Hayes. And so this one I definitely had on my iPad to show off because Tiffany and I were teaching a couple of weeks together for the Mystery Quilt Along, and we wanted to brag about her cruises. So here's another one from her. This is Oasis of Quilting Cruise. And this is, oh, is it on the Oasis? I think that's what they're telling us here too. And that's also going to be Tiffany Hayes and Michael Davidson, who is a certified instructor for quilt work. So that's going to be super fun coming up. And we just have a bunch on our website. So check out stitchinheaven.com. With cruises, we know you need to plan long-term in advance to make sure you put it on your calendar. We can offer financing on the cruises and all of that so that you can make sure it works out for you. So anyways, we've just updated that with more future cruises so that you can plan for how you'd like to spend your sewing at sea time with us at Stitchin Heaven. And speaking of that, we also have, of course, you know, I'm a huge fan of the retreats, and I just want to spend a little time each week talking about them. And so I'm trying to put them in order. So coming up here real soon, it looks like we have the March 26th through 30th Nancy Mahoney Spring Green Retreat. I thought the Big Hooter Retreat was following after. It is. Okay, April 3rd through 6th. Then we have the Quilt Works Experience. This is awesome. Tina Luters and Michael Davidson will be back there April 27th through May 2nd. I feel like I'm probably going too fast. And then again, Tina's back for the Cabaret Retreat, which is again another Quilt Works pattern. And these Quilt Works are just incredible. And if you haven't considered one of these foundation piecing projects, it's really worth checking into. And then, of course, we are doing non-quilting or quilting, but non-wall hanging quilting events with Anna coming up doing her quilted shawl retreat. She has wonderful samples also on the website and some patterns as well so that you can get those in advance if you wanted to get a little early start. That's awesome. And then the other thing I'm super excited about coming up while we're into our announcements is the Land Ahoy. These are retreats at hotels. And if you look at the one in the middle there, that's in Shipshewana, Indiana, June 8th through 13th. That's going to be awesome because I get to hang out with my buddies, the Quilting Marine and the Combat Quilter. But you'll also see we have one in April in San Diego. We have one in July in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and another one in August in Minneapolis. So lots and lots and lots of incredible events coming up. I'm going to go on spend a little bit of time about once a month or so and just remind you all of the availabilities that we have because we're constantly updating them. And that's why we always tell you to make sure you're signed up for our newsletter at stitchinheaven.com. So at any rate, let's move into the more casual part of the show if I can. I got some wonderful photos this week. I'm doing somebody else's show and tell, Stitch and Tell. Ooh, did I just rename show and tell to Stitch and Tell? Stitch and Show? Something like that? Ooh, that could be fun. So folks, you know we did the mystery quilt a few weeks ago, and that's always on New Year's Day or sometimes New Year's Eve, depending on what happens with a Sunday in the calendar. So one of the things that we've done is we have a Facebook page which is active all year long, and I love watching people put their stash pictures up or their proposed piles a few weeks in advance before the mystery quilt along, and then watching them turn into blocks and then blocks into quilts. So because I have access to the page, I jumped on and grabbed a few photos. So I'm not going to mention names here. I just really was excited. If you see your picture here, this is meant to be an honor. I'm really excited, and in no particular order except for the fact that I did see this one, and I just loved how different the fabric choices made the pattern look from the one that I made. Plus, I like the piano keys borders on that one. And then talk about different in comparison. There is a crazy bright version, and I just love this one as well. And then, of course, I'm always a sucker for any photo with a pet on it. And so this one's more similar to Tiffany's color family choices, but just a fantastic photo of a pet on a quilt, which is what's most important there. Anyways, okay, so moving on, here are a couple quilts that came in this week on the web to me via email. So these are from Margot. Thank you, Margot, for sending in photos of the quilts. If I remember the story correctly, the quilts were made for Christmas for the grandkids. So I have this one here from Margot. This one, which I really like, speaking of scrappy, you can see there's a pattern in there, but to me, and I hope I'm getting this right, it also feels very scrappy in a way. And then this one's terrific, very modern Jetsons, kind of like hipster. I like them, but I like all quilts. So I don't mean that I like this one any better than the other. This one also, if I know the pattern, may have been some sort of a disappearing 9-patch or something that's gone back together in a really neat format. And I love those kinds of blocks. And I really enjoy getting to try to guess or make up my own stories about all of your quilts that came in. So thank you, Margot, for sending in your quilts that you made for the grandkids. That's awesome. And just as a friendly statement, I'm not going to overdo this, folks, but I actually was recently offended on a Facebook post where folks were talking about making quilts for husbands. Like, one, guys couldn't make their own quilts, and two, like the only quilts that, anyways. So I in the past I've been more maybe gender specific based on names. So I'm just going to try to be cool to all the folks that are out there that would prefer, and I'm terrible at it, but so anyways, if you notice today I changed a little bit of the headers. That's all I'm doing, is just trying to make sure that I don't either embarrass myself or somebody out there, because I so appreciate getting to see all of the pictures of all of the quilts. And really, folks, that's what this brand, that's what this channel, that's what this community is all about, is just quilting. It's not about anything else, really. You know, we're going to talk about what I think are some healthy ideas for maybe physical health or mental health. Of course, I have a spiritual side to me. I have a crazy side to me. But really, you know, this is to be fun and engaging and very educational and supportive to quilters out there. So anyways, I'm just going to try a little bit because, like I said, I love to do, you know, new things with each new year. So let's go ahead and dive in to my grateful list for the week. And so the grateful list is kind of my way of reminding myself, especially Fridays when I kind of get a little stressed out about what to do for the show, all of the things that I am so very grateful for each and every day. So first off here this week, we have notes of support. So I don't know if this will work on the screen the same if I put this up, barely. So I'm just going to go ahead and turn this off for a second. So I just want to say thank you, Michelle B., for sending me emails often, but the email you sent recently was just reminding me that you enjoy what I do and you find it inspiring. And I would like you to understand that that pays out tenfold for me. I was taught a long time ago, if you receive a compliment or a critique, one person is generally speaking for 10. So Michelle and your 9 friends out there, thank you so much for just sending me words of encouragement, being supportive to me the last few weeks. You know, if you followed my story for a lot of years, February is an interesting month for me because that's when I start to really focus on my recovery from alcohol. And this year will be 13 years, and sometimes I get a little bit depressed, and I also get a little bit depressed or lack of motivation after big events. And so this last week has been a bit of a challenge for me. And so as we get back into the grateful list, we're going to talk about some new passions. And when I say new passions, yes, we might think it is this insane hobby for Nerf that we've been having, but this is really now more of my son and myself having good times in the garage. So he has received a 3D printer from Santa. And so with the 3D printer this week, he took my standard Nerf gun that I love, and he made me a lower handle. He made me a suppressor, some optics, and a rear stock. So we're having a lot of fun with the Nerf and the 3D printer. But really what my new passions is about is this little pad right here and these red pens and pencils. So I'm going to tell a bit of a long story. Please try to stay with me because at the end of this story is where the new idea starts for all of us. So it started for me because every year in January, I normally pick some new form of art to pursue that I don't have to be good at. You see, I feel like I'm supposed to be good at the art of quilt making and at the art of presenting quilt making, because that's what you all come here for. So years ago, I got into woodworking, and even funny enough, I learned to make pens and pencils and seam rippers and stilettos, and I made this. Oh, we've got all these wonderful cameras. Let's just go overhead. I made this wonderful mechanical pencil, and now that I found all this wonderful red lead, which we're going to get to in a second here, I'm going to make myself another mechanical pencil, because this is my sewing pencil, so I don't want it to leave the sewing room, right? But I've just got this little journal here, and I'll show real quick, but I've gotten some drawings going here, and then I've made a little list on the back page, because what happened was I saw somebody on social media that was doing a daily 15-minute drawing exercise. So yes, I've done woodworking, and I've taken up knitting, and I've done all kinds of things over the years. And the last couple of years I've been tattooing as my new passion that outside of quilting. But one of the things that we rely on so much is technology anymore. And I've done most of my drawing for the last many, many, many years inside of the digital platform, which changes things a lot, by the way. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to start drawing on paper with red pencil, because it's something I see the cool tattooers doing. And so at any rate, I just didn't know what to draw. So here comes the rest of the story. I found that because I have a cell phone in my pocket, I could ask it for a random drawing prompt. And I found a couple of apps which worked pretty well. And by about day 3, I found one that I really, really like. And I don't remember it, but right now, send me an email. I'll share you the link if this is something you're interested in. So at any rate, what I do is I press a button on the cell phone after my early morning Bible time. I get a fresh cup of coffee. I press a button and it tells me a prompt. And then I want to practice different styles of tattooing. So like painting or quilt making, tattooing has different genres or different styles. And so that's where I roll a die and I get a style. And so here's a few of the drawings in order from the week. And this silly as can be, 15-minute time limit. So this first prompt was basically, it was a kettle and AI. And I really enjoyed this one with the new, it's like a gel pen in red, and I enjoyed that a lot. That was my Robo Coffee gone wrong. The next day I got an apple in fine line black and gray. So there was a shaded, maybe more of a realistic apple. Third day was it was supposed to be a spy dog, and I think I went more detective dog in American traditional. Fourth day was an absolute fail, but I wanted to enjoy the time frame, so you'll notice I spent time coloring in the grade because I still had 2 or 3 minutes left on the clock, and I didn't want to give up, even though I hated the drawing by this point. But the next day, we got the jellyfish in a race in New School, so that was pretty fun. Yesterday, I ran out of time. I was having so much fun with the old or antique camera. So at any rate, this is what I've been up to in my morning times, and it's really leading to something else. And let me see if I've already got it on the grateful list as I scroll around. There's a lot of slides for y'all today. So yes, so this brings me to something I want to start doing more and more for sewing. I want to develop something really fun for us all to participate. No obligation, no cost, of course, and something we could do like once a week where we're going to create a random series of choices. That's all I want to say right now, because I actually have this pretty organized, but I want to make it really fun and easy to understand. So come back next week on Friday, and hopefully by then I'll have all the parts and pieces necessary to do what will be really fun. And we're going to start some random sewing, no obligation sewing that will turn into beautiful quilts if it all goes together right. So I'm pretty excited about this nonetheless. And then the other thing that I kind of rededicated myself to with the new passions, because my injury ended, or my old passion was getting out surfing early in the morning in that ice cold water. And it's been good, but part of what I had to wait for was my injury to heal up. And then secondly were these ebbs and flows we talk about. So ebbs and flows is a title term often, but when we think about our life and we think about either our creativity or maybe what's going on in our family lives or maybe what's going on in our couples' lives, our relationships, whatever, things really do ebb and flow. So just because I have the time in the morning before work to go surfing doesn't mean the tide is always right. Sometimes the tide gets too full and there's no waves, or sometimes the tide gets too low and the waves are really kind of gnarly and dangerous. And so that's what I'm also kind of trying to key back into right now. And that's a key to mental health, I believe, is recognizing the ebbs and the flows. And as I get excited about this creative process, trying to allow that to spill over into the other parts of life. And then also remembering when I'm not feeling, I'm more in that ebb or that crushing tide, that it too will pass. So maybe those words are important for somebody else out there to hear today. But that's what I meant by my ebbs and tides and the new passions kind of playing into each other. And then, of course, for the last but not least item on the grateful list today, was the pattern testing, aka having deadlines to work on. So now, folks, I'm not sure how much we're going to really do at Stitchin Heaven with the newest World's Fabrics line, but we will have a free pattern coming out. It might be seeable on the wall on my side camera. Let me see. Barely, you can see the corner there, but you can see here I'm starting to work on some fun parts and pieces to test to make sure that my pattern instructions are correct. And in the overhead camera right now, what you're looking at is some strips. And I was sewing this right when I started on camera, but my microphone was turned off. You couldn't hear me trying to race to get it done. But this is what we call a tall triangle block, 4.5 inches square. And I made it with this goddess tool. And this goddess tool is probably hard to see at the moment. This is from my friend Tiffany Hayes, and it does the tall triangles. It does some work with half square triangles. And she's got other patterns that work really nicely for this. So what I was doing was preparing the parts and pieces, and I thought it might be something fun to share with you all or show if you're interested. Now, whenever I have these videos, I try to put all the links in the description so they're easier to find. So I put up a page for the cruises, I put up a page for the land ahoys, I put up a page for the retreat coming up for myself and the videos and things. And I do believe I just also put up a link to the goddess tool if you don't already have one. So let me show you how to sew one, and then if we have the moment, well, we'll take the time and I'll show you how to cut one, and then I'll answer your questions, and then we'll be off for the rest of our weekend, folks. So yeah, kind of going to be a really fun and cool block here. And for myself, I need these to turn out with opposite colors. So I'm just going to make this one right now. So what you're seeing here, let's go to your overhead. What we're seeing here is correct for what I need in the pattern. These are going to be on the right sides for the project. So as I go ahead and go to flip these over, like any other triangle pattern, I'm going to have a little bit of overhang on both sides, a little bit of that overlap to make sure that when I sew them in, everything lines up nice. So I'm almost looking more to get that top edge covered up here. I know it's crazy wonky, but I just did one and it didn't work out where I lined it up the other way. So now let's see, we've got the needle camera running today. Thank you, needle camera. 2005 iPhone, pretty cool. All right, here we go. So I'm just gonna stitch this through here like yay. And that's a 1/4 inch seam allowance guide I have in place. And then with that, I'm just gonna go ahead and press it. I might have overlapped a little too much. No, really is quite good there. Because the corners get caught up in the 1/4 inch seam allowance. My iron was a little cool. But so yeah, you can see these corners get caught up in the 1/4 inch seam allowance. So I have the blue side on now, and then I needed one more of these pink ones up here like this. So you're just kind of completing your squares back together. Nice thing about this is because of the goddess tool, there's no trimming involved. And now I'm just actually, I've learned I kind of line up that scrap tip way up there like that to help me get my little bits of overlap dialed in. And then I'm just going to come back on into the machine here. And wasn't paying attention, so I'm just going to line that edge up a little bit better as I finish it out. Okay, and there's that, and it's gonna, like I said, needs to be about a 4.5 inch square. So, yeah, close enough, eh, Andrew, if you're out there watching today? right? Yeah, pretty dang good. Awesome. So I can show you the pattern at least. It's going to be like a storm at sea when it's done. But I wanted to modify it a little bit so that it would be easier blocks to build. So here in the overhead, you can see the pattern I'm working on right now. It'll be called Offshore Breeze, like a storm at sea. And then I can show you quickly, and this is kind of the whys. The key to it is just going to be to keep track because of the different color orientations in the block. You see how that's going to come together? So what we were making right now was like these tall triangles. Well, excuse me, we were making this one up here and this one out here. So there's a couple different colors as it goes through. And then we'll have this ready to be taught. And like I said, a free download that comes up for the spring with the fabrics as they become available. But it's just been so much fun this week sitting in here and sewing. And I know that I said my deadline was part of my grateful list, but sometimes when you have so many creative ideas, you need a calendar to actually help you manage which one you start, so therefore you can finish on time to keep the folks out there happy with you as you're trying to serve as an ambassador for them. So at any rate, that's what this week has been all about for me. I hope you've all had an incredibly good time. I did appreciate hearing what you were all sewing on last week. That was fun to hear about that in the comments. So maybe what we should talk about this week in the comments, especially if you're watching this on the recorded version, and but of course finish out today with your comments as well, is what kind of like resolutions for personal improvement. And I don't even like the words in resolutions, but what kind of personal improvements are you all working on? Like I said, I want to be better at drawing on pen and paper, or pencil and paper, no tracing, very little reference, because it excites me. And by now having this opportunity to have somebody else provide the idea for me, now I get to practice. I stopped practicing for years because I didn't have an idea generator. So if you stick with me, I may have a great idea generator for us all for our quilting, which will help us keep moving through the sewing world. Because if you're at all like me, working with your hands makes you feel so good inside and really helps you process through so many of those things that we as humans need to process through, right? So anyways, let me do a quick comment check here, make sure everyone's doing good. I see ACJ's out there and Carl. That's awesome. Thank you for the compliments on the colors, Helen. See if I've missed any questions. Oh, I see Ingrid and Patty are bragging about me again. Thank you, Ingrid and Patty. That's very nice. Well, okay, so Patty, the octopus was a fail because not only was it supposed to be, here, we'll go to the overhead. It was supposed to be an octopus clerk, and I was doing an octopus notions peddler. But for the day, there we go. But for the day, I had pulled geometric. So the dice for the tattoo series gave me geometric. So look at how bad those lower legs are on the octopus, right? It was a fun idea, but that's bad. And I do believe one of the things about being a good artist, and I hope I don't sound like a braggadocious artist, is knowing when you're not being a good artist. Just because you're producing doesn't mean you're producing excellence. And if I can draw a jellyfish with no reference that's that cool, then I feel like I can personally critique my octopus that is not proportional as not so cool. But look how nice the F- turned out. That's a nicely shaded F- and a fail, if you will at least give me that. And that was the benefit of that day. Actually, what I really probably should have focused on more was I didn't stop the timer and I didn't crumple up the paper. I didn't care for the drawing. I looked down and I had 2.5 minutes to go. So I wrote out my grade and I continued to color because it's the pencil in my hand on the paper, the touch, the softness and all of that it's just so fun to work with. So I really enjoyed that. Thank you all for the compliments on the drawings. It's been really a fun thing. It really has been a fun thing. And like I said, it's got me inspired in a lot of different ways. Okay, I'm looking for questions here. Ooh, McMinnville, Oregon. That sounds like a cool place. I think I'll have to come back. Okay, I don't see any questions, folks. I see a lot of positive compliments. Thank you for that. And, oh, okay, Nancy, you want to be part of my quilt idea generator, right? It'll be a block. Let's not get carried away. But I think I've got a good block generator for us. This is going to be super fun. Oh, okay, this is great. Mary, here's a good question I just saw come through about the stitch guide on my machine right here. So why do I prefer this stitch guide over a guide on the edge of my foot? Well, this is my handy quilter machine, and this is a bit more industrial machine, and so things don't just pop on and off real easy. So I have to unscrew the foot every time I want to change it out, and whenever I want to do curved sewing or half square triangles where I go across a diagonal drawn, this or the edge guide gets in the way. So for me, I can loosen this up and swing it out of the way very quickly, and then I can sew on half square triangles, right, when you're kind of going down the seam in the middle. Makes it much easier than switching on and off the feet by having to unscrew them. So it's mostly a preference based on this machine, but I prefer this machine over many other machines, or this style, the straight stitch style machine. And part of it is because of that bolt down edge guide. It just gives me a little bit more better visual. Also, it's adjustable to my 1/4 inch. And excuse me, my nose is starting to itch, but a few months back I provided a video where I had learned some cool new techniques, and really how we iron, the thickness of our threads, how we cut on our rulers can all be affecting that 1/4 inch seam. And so with that being said, you want to make sure that your calibration, whatever you're using to sew on, is helping you get the desired effect. And sometimes the part that is attached to the foot isn't helping us get the 1/4 inch because of the thread thicknesses, the cutting, the ironing, and it's not adjustable. Where this one, I can adjust to make it a bit bigger, a bit smaller to work with it. Great question. Love it, love it, love it. Okay. I love that question. Okay, I think I've gotten them answered up. Okay, fantastic, folks. Well, I've got a cup of coffee in my near future and another couple of appointments I do not want to miss this afternoon, so I'm going to bounce on to that. I'd like to wish you all a fantastic weekend coming up. Sounds like I better get cracking on my quilt block idea generator for us all. It might turn into something fantastic, I hope. And if nothing else, it'll give us something to look forward to all week. I will see you next week. Until then, please